the agenda. To ensure that everyone is able to hear speakers clearly, please speak directly into the microphone. Staff will now explain how the public comment process works.
Yes, thank you. For each item on the agenda, there will be time for public comment. We accept public comment in 3 different ways. First, we will take in-person public comments. Choose to do this, please fill out a speaker card and turn it into me. If you wish to speak on an item, please, in the interest of time, try to limit your comments to no longer than 3 minutes. We will also accept comments from our Zoom participants. If you have a public comment via Zoom, please utilize the chat box. Using this method, name yourself so that your first and last name are reflected for the record. If the comment is regarding a specific agenda item, please indicate which item. Comments will be accepted only until the end of the public comment period for that item. Please keep in mind that if there are technical difficulties with Zoom, the meeting will proceed as normal. The city will do its best to resolve any technical issues as quickly as possible. Finally, I will then state any public comments that we have received by email for a particular item. Any technical limitations associated with gathering, printing, and sorting email public comments. The city has instituted a 3 p.m. cutoff the day of the Public Safety Commission meeting for emailed public comments. Any comments received after 3 p.m. will be included in the public comment record for the meeting, but will not be provided during the meeting.
Thank you. Does anyone here wish to speak at this time? If so, please state your name for the record. Being that there's no one here. Robert.
There are no comments on Zoom at this time.
Do we have any public comments requests submitted electronically?
No.
Do the commissioners have anything to report?
No.
No. The only comment I will make is just I thought it was an awesome event, multi-department participation at the corner for the gingerbread house. Amazing turnout, probably bigger than you guys expected. But I think it was a very nice way to kind of kick off the holiday season. So thank you for that. It was great being there.
700 bucks.
700? I think you needed more. The line was probably 200 people, maybe 200, maybe 100. It was unbelievable. We are going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is lift station. Item 1 is lift station project award for contract. Can we please have a presentation from Parks and Public Works Director Shaw?
Thank you, Chair Martinson, and good evening, commissioners. This report is regarding the award of contract for the city's 3 lift stations as part of the lift station improvement project. We have 3 lift stations located at Avondale Road, Orlando Road, and Monterey Road. And the lift stations, although someone at face value may wonder why are we talking about this at public safety, it is a public health and safety issue when they fail. So they are a critical part of our infrastructure. And for that reason, I wanted to bring this item here this evening because they are aging in a deteriorated condition. They've been a part of, they were identified back in 2019 as critical infrastructure to be updated. And so now that the design is complete, we have put this project out to bid, and we did receive 2 bids for the project from 2 contractors that had attended our mandatory pre-bid construction meeting. We had 5 attend, but only 2 elected to submit bids for this project. Our low bidder was CWS Systems, and we had structured the bid knowing that we did have some design scope change. We amended the scope after we received the final design. You may recall that being in a previous report to address some electrical components that were originally excluded from the design, and that added some significant costs to the project. There's also, over the past few years, been a significant amount of escalation in pricing in the construction industry that we've seen as a whole. And so for that reason, we did structure the bid once we had the revised engineer's estimate for the project to have a base bid for Avondale as the primary lift station. That is the largest lift station. It's also the one that's in the most critical condition. And then we had an alternate additive bids for Avondale and for Monterey and Orlando. And so if you look at the total construction cost for all 3 lift stations, It came in at $2,276,000 for the three, with the low bidder CWS Systems. This wasn't too far off of our engineer's estimate once it had been revised to take into account the added scope and cost escalations, which was just over 1.9 million. So that being said, we did structure the bid that way, but staff recommendation due to the critical nature of these facilities, knowing that costs just seem to continue to increase. There's also a significant lead time for many of the electrical components associated with the project. We've heard lead times of up to 50 weeks for some of the panels. So even with the award now, actual construction may not start until very late next year, unless there's some change in supply that's available. But so that for that reason, we don't expect to see costs are going to really decrease. And with the long lead and the critical nature of these lift stations, we are recommending construction of all three. In addition to that, we are recommending that we have an on-site construction manager that has experience specifically with lift stations and doing the inspections and managing those types of projects. We did receive 2 proposals for construction management and inspection services. And after reviewing their proposals and going through an interview process with them, we did select Z&K Consultants that we're recommending awarding a contract. They have experience with the city, recently managing our street rehabilitation projects. They also have a significant amount of experience working on municipal projects for 15 other lift station improvement projects and over 15 wastewater and water and wastewater projects for other public agencies. So they definitely have the experience and the familiarity with our community to recommend the award contract to them for their services. So that brings our fiscal impact for the project. Here it's noted at just over $2.7 million. One thing that was omitted that will be included in our report to council, because it wasn't a bid or solicitation for services, is that the designer of record would also be needed during construction to attend meetings, review submittals, respond to RFIs. So their added services for that portion of providing services during construction came in about $45,000. So in reality, the project's a little over $2.8 million. In terms of budget impact, the previous budget that we've had for this project was for this year was just over $1.1 million. So obviously it is a significant increase to what was originally forecasted for this project. You know, when it was first conceived back in 2019, and there's been not too much adjustment to those expectations of cost until now that we're here. And so although it is more than we had budgeted, it won't be a budget impact for this fiscal year. It'll be something we can address during this next budget cycle to account for how that will impact our CIP going forward. I think that covers everything. So with that, I will conclude my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. We definitely welcome and look forward to your comments and support hopefully for this project, and any feedback we receive will be incorporated into the report. So.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions from the commission? Starting with Elizabeth.
I was just curious as to how many bidders there were. So CWS Systems, which looks like it was awarded the bid, and for our coastal construction, Reggie Riccomano.
Yes, those were the only 2 bids we received. We had a mandatory pre-construction conference before the bids were due. We had 5 contractors attend that meeting, but only of those 5, only 2 submitted bids.
Was there any feedback as to why only 2 submitted bids?
No, we didn't receive any feedback.
And then what is the engineer's estimate?
So the engineer of record that prepared the plans and specifications for the project, they do their own estimate based on what they expect to see. So you'll see their estimate for all 3 is $1,947,000. They give a range also, 10% low, 15% high. So it was pretty close to the upper end of their estimate. It was actually $2,242,000, and it came in at $2,276,000.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes, so you said Z&K, were there other bidders on the management?
We received 2 proposals. The other one was Lideu. That's how they say their names. Yes.
And you guys considered
We considered both of them. Those were the only two proposals we received. We reviewed both proposals. We interviewed both consultants. And just the experience of Z and K stood out quite a bit more than Ladeo's did when we interviewed them. We also felt that the proposal submitted by Z and K was a better proposal, so in proposal and interview. And then looking at the proposal costs, Ladeo was actually about double the
Oh.
price, so.
So CWS, have they worked with ZNK before?
That I don't know specifically if they worked with them.
Okay, I mean, I just recently built something, so I know how important the project manager and the actual contractor doing the work is, so, do you see any issues with the two working together?
Not that I'm aware of, no, I do know that Z and K, we did ask at the time if Z and K had worked with our engineer of record, Dudak, because that's important too, having a good relationship between our engineer and our construction manager for making sure that the project is constructed in accordance with plans and specifications. And they've worked together on projects. I don't recall if Z and K.
The engineer of record is, someone the city hired,
Yes, Dudak Engineers.
Udek, okay. And, let's see. I just had some questions on the risk section. They talk about Artesia being a neighboring city, but obviously Artesia is not a neighboring city. I think it's on page 435. Risk 5 and also risk 6, they talked about San Bernardino.
Yeah, some typos in there.
Yeah, so we wanna make it pertinent to San Marino and Pasadena, I think should be the neighboring city.
Yeah.
That's all.
Getting very big, obviously. Thank you. Commissioner Buck?
I also had some questions about the role that Z and K consultants will play. If I understood the numbers correctly, we're paying them about 16% of the fee that we're paying, or the amount we're going to be paying the contractor. 400,000 versus 2.8 or something like that.
No, their proposal is 230,000, it's about 10%.
I'm sorry, I misheard you then. So it's about 10%. What is it that they do that we can't do?
They provide, so they will be providing basically daily on-site support out in the field. They have the electrical and other certifications for inspecting these types of projects that we just don't have that expertise in, nor the staff to have someone out there with those qualifications to inspect, to provide the project management. They run the weekly construction meetings, which we'll still be a part of. Obviously, we participate in those meetings as well. But they provide the daily on-site inspection that our staff just have those types of qualifications to provide.
Will our staff have any responsibility for this project?
Overall, yes, I mean, we're responsible for the project. We'll be involved in terms of all of the weekly construction management, making sure I'll be getting weekly reports from the consultant, advising me of how the progress, any issues, any concerns. They provide all the daily interface with the contractor, any residents, field.
But our review then will be with Z and K. We review them, they review the other guy.
They provide all the updates and making sure that we're on. So if there's any issues, they report all of that to it.
Thank you.
In terms of a traditional project like this, construction management, I'm assuming is always part of the scope per se.
Yeah, in terms of big, larger construction projects, especially ones that require either a lot of on-site time that we just don't have the staffing to support, and or special certifications, or this is obviously a very complex and specialized project. So things like this, or even with our paving, where it's just a lot of time that we can't devote a staff to. We do recommend the CM services be provided for those types of projects. And in terms of fee, they are generally in the 8 to 10% construction value. That's the full range for those types of services of what the construction is. Sometimes it's at the higher end even if it's a less expensive project, because they all require similar amount of effort, even if it's not a high dollar value project, although this is still pretty significant.
I think to add on to Commissioner Pfeffer's comment, if possible, maybe in a future round, it would be interesting to see why the 3 did drop off from the original 5, just. They didn't like the way we provided the proposal, what they heard just in terms of lessons learned. From there, have we checked references on this, the person that we did select? And how was that feedback? Any surprises?
No, satisfactory when we check CWS's.
Okay, and the same for Z&K?
Yes, and we've had experience working with them, haven't had any issues.
Not wishing to necessarily interrupt, but I think the pre-process that you referred to includes checking of references of the people that come to the meeting? Or do you wait until you get a bid?
No, we wait until we get bids.
Thank you.
It's just part of the requirements of this particular construction bid. We did make it a mandatory meeting for them to come, so that way that they could actually go out to the site, so they had an engineer here explaining the project, that they would be aware of all the conditions of where the lift stations are located and things of that we felt that this meeting for this particular project was important for them to come here and actually visit the sites and have the project explained to them and what was involved.
Sure. Other question, you mentioned that the earliest this would start probably in about a year. Contractually, do we set it up in a way that they can increase costs, or do they do like a CPI adjustment? Like, how do we know that we're not gonna take on additional costs from this since we're already kind of higher than we thought and just continue to go up?
Well, the way the project was bid out in our specifications and plans, we did specifically state in our specifications that we were aware there's long lead items. We are gonna have an administrative NTP, notice to proceed, as part of the project. So once the projects are awarded, they will begin to submit the different, especially long lead item submittals, so that we can get those things on order and actually get a true idea of when those will come in, to back calculate in terms of when we can start construction. So it's an estimated, we said it's an estimated December date, so they're supposed to already be planning for that, so we shouldn't see any additional costs or increases, because we've already laid that out in the specifications, that it could be up to a year if nothing changes in the supply chain for those particular products. So we're already planning for that, and they're aware.
Okay, and then the final one, in terms of interruption service to residents, is that a possibility, or is that built into bypass?
They will
Lifting?
be,
I don't know what it would be, but
there will be bypasses, so there might be temporary, a 6-hour shutdown or something where we have just put in the bypasses, but it should be minimal disruption other than those time periods to put in the bypasses.
I have no further questions. Anyone else?
Yes,
No. Oh,
I neglected to ask, when is the project actually going to take place? When are you going to do whatever you're going to do to whichever one of these things you're gonna do first?
Yeah, we are expecting it's about a 200 working day time frame for the construction period of the project. And with the award, so we are taking the contract for award in January to the city council at the January 10th meeting. Once the awards have been made, we will issue, as I said, the administrative NTP, so they can start submitting products for approval. We'll go through that process. Once they get the long lead items ordered and we have actual delivery estimates of when those will come in. And as that time period gets closer, we'll be able to decide when to give the construction notice to proceed. At this point, we're forecasting construction NTP won't be until December of next year, just based on our current lead times that we've been told by our engineer, and approximately 50-week lead time for some of those.
So we're
And then
ordering
it'll
the
be
bits
200
and
days.
pieces. The contractor isn't. We're ordering the equipment of the things that are gonna be installed or what have you.
They will, once we approve their submittals.
They will.
Mhm.
And so they'll start to get paid.
Right,
Something.
for some things, just, for the materials portion of the
And
ordering.
is that the 200 days from then, or is it 200 days from December of 24?
200 days from December of 2024, unless.
Just to get Avondale done,
No, that's for all three.
for all three.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
thank you.
they're not gonna be allowed to construct concurrently. They're be directed to only gonna do one lift station at a time. But the total duration for all three lift stations is 200 working.
Thank you.
just I'm kind of curious that 3/5 of the people proposing a project dropping off, does that surprise you at all, or? that kind of industry standard?
I think that just there's a significant amount of construction demand right now, and there's a lot of projects out there, and I think they can be a little more choosy if they feel like it's not maybe the best fit for them, or they have bigger projects to go after in other areas. I mean, our lift stations are fairly small by other city standards, so that could have been a part of it, but
Just, I mean, just usually some, but not more than half, so I'm kind of surprised by that. That would have been a difference of one more person bidding on it. Any further questions? No. I would like to open up the item for public comment. Any public comment? Please, can we remind them, how did you public comment?
Yes, if you are in Zoom and you want to specifically provide a public comment for this item, lift stations item, please indicate so in the chat box. I'll give a little bit of time here. I don't see any comments on Zoom or electronic.
Thank you. Do we have anything submitted electronically for this topic? No, thank you. At this time, I will bring the item back for discussions, Do I have any comments, questions from the commission? Have any new ones? Do I have a motion?
So move.
What would be the motion?
I'm sorry, but you want me to read the move?
Yeah, please.
It's the motion is stated in. I move to receive and file a staff report for awards of contract to CWS Systems Inc. and Z&K Consultants for inspection and construction management services for the lift station improvement project, and recommend support of the Parks and Public Works Department's recommendation to the City Council.
Second.
Thank you. May we do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Pfeffer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chang,
Aye.
Chair Martinson.
Right, thank you. We'll now move into our more traditional program, our monthly updates. Item 2 is the police department's monthly report. Can we please have a presentation from Commander Plumley?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commission members. I'm going to call attention to a couple different items in the report. You'll notice there's one related to an attempted robbery. The victim was withdrawing cash at the ATM. I just want to kind of clarify, this one wasn't the same as one that you might remember previously, where the subject actually waited directly behind the person at the ATM and had a gun, actually presented a gun and took the money. This one was completely different in that there was no gun presented. They basically asked, can I have that type of thing? And the person said no, screamed, and that was the end of it. So while it is an attempted robbery, and that's the way it's classified, at least, there was no weapon presented, there was no threats made. So when you see some of these in the report and or in our weeklies, I think it's important to get a little bit of clarification on some of them. So that is one I want to point out. We've also had our share, at least the fire department's had their share of fires lately. Some vegetation, most recently we had one as a residential here locally. One thing to point out, I think for everybody as a caution, is that with the holidays and everything else going on, is when cooking, don't leave items unattended on the stove. Not to say that that's the cause of all these, but just a friendly reminder. They go up pretty quick, and again, Chief Rhoda can comment on how that works, but just a reminder to all for safety when it comes to that in the kitchen. The next one is the one that you see that's a paraphernalia arrest. That one is on Brentford Road. Why I want to point that out is we were called out for a suspicious vehicle. So the key to that is that not just the officers were out, it's the residents calling and reporting something that was, you know, out of the ordinary or usual to them. And while it may seem like it's insignificant in general as far as the type of arrest, you can kind of see what the person had on them as far as the items that were located with them. I think that's of concern, as well as the fact that the person was on probation for burglary. I think it's all relative. So these are a good contact, a good arrest in general. Maybe not the outcome that we want. It's not a burglar, so to speak, where they were in the house and we got a hold of them that way. But it worked out because we had resident calling in and notifying us of something that was not right to them. As I kind of commented to Chair Martinson, November was clearly a busier month for the department and the city in general. You'll see the residential burglaries are noted as there was 7 for the month of November. That's residential burglaries only. It actually was, and looking at the stats, you'll see that just in general burglaries overall, there was 11. That was the highest for the year. I think again, that's something to point out is that with the holidays and the month of November, so far that's been the highest, and that's obviously not what we want, but we just want everybody to be on the lookout and aware. Key point here though is that where they made their entry on these burglaries is its rear yard, so it's fairly consistent with subjects going to the rear yard. I can tell you from looking at some of the specific stuff, it's usually very typical. It's dark clothing, hoods, it's masks, gloves, etc. So they're staying well bundled up and concealing their identity if they can. But you also see that many of the homes did not have surveillance and or alarms that were either on and or working. So our stress is that all the community would just constantly tell you to get a system in general, whatever that system is. Cost is not of importance, it's just having something in place. And that way we can actually start to identify times of day, what they were wearing. We can talk to other agencies. We start linking all that stuff together. We look at our flock cameras. We start making connections with that, with plates, and now we have something. So just as an example, like if you said something happened at 1:30 in the morning, which is an unusual time, there's not many cars out. So if we don't get a whole lot of suspect information, but we know the time, we start looking for cars in the area around 1:30 in the morning, and there's maybe 10 cars total, we can start to narrow it down. So timeliness of the reporting is critical, whether you're in town or out of town. If you get a notification on your system to your phone or other device, letting us know right away is important. Don't call a friend, call us. We are your friend. We want to get out there quick. So don't cancel alarms. I think we've talked about that before. If you have an alarm system and you're like, oh, it's probably nothing, don't cancel it. Just let our guys and girls respond to the scene and make that determination. During the month, we also put in place the crime suppression plan where we're having our extra patrols out. Unfortunately, that didn't obviously lead to a whole bunch of arrests, but we're still following up with it. We're giving the heat maps out that are showing the times of day, days a week to the officers, and they're focusing on those areas of the city where it's predictive policing, where it tells us that it's most likely to occur. So we're continuing with that. And then switching gears to the technology, I think it's important to note that we're getting a little bit closer here with our assessment of the body worn cameras. Obviously 3 different companies. We're on the 3rd and final company. Our vendor, Matter Tebbets, is kind of overseeing that and the progress of it. It's being tested and evaluated by our officers in the field on different shifts. And then they're reviewing that data. And at the end of it all, we'll come together with these department staff and kind of isolate who might be our best option for the city. Aside from that, I kind of touched on it, but essentially the stats is just what I wanted to note is that we really need the support, like you see in that one case that I highlighted. We need the assistance of the public. Whether you have a visitor at the house and they're watching the house for you, or it's you yourself, we just need somebody to make that notification. Because obviously if we even have 4 or 5 cars out at the same time, they can't be everywhere all at once. Because the other interest is traffic enforcement, not just patrolling the neighborhoods. So there's a lot of different things that we're doing all at the same time. We're going to continue to do that. I think one of the things that was brought up when it relates to traffic safety recently was angle parking. So if there's questions after, I can kind of address some of that. We try to do some run some numbers on the angle parking along Huntington Drive on the south side of Huntington Drive. And I can address that as well as traffic collision. I think it was mentioned a traffic collision on Sierra Madre Robles. There was some questions about the most recent one that occurred in the month of November. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions about any of the areas in the report or the 2 that I just mentioned now, I'm happy to.
Thank you, Commander Galante. Commissioner Bowden.
With regard to the question of angle parking, I believe it's the Parks and Public Works report indicates that discussion has been had with the police department and that the police department was going to develop some information on some historical information on accidents and the like. when might we expect to have a report on that?
So I can work, I wasn't aware that we were an official report, but I do have some general numbers that I can provide, but if you so desire, we can put an official report together.
I'm less concerned about the official, I think the information needs to be there, but I'm absolutely looking forward to an official report because we have people in the community that have been injured. We have people in the community that have approached the commission with a request that this area be considered along with other traffic safety issues. So yes, I'm looking forward to some kind of an official report, whether it's a separate item or included in somebody's report. It's gonna, I would think that the something more formal than informal might be better, especially if a conclusion is reached, do nothing.
Understood, we can put that together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the community's looking for. And so, thank you so much for immediately addressing the issue. Really appreciate that. Members of the community would as well. And if you want to delay sharing information, that's great. If you've got some quick information you'd like to share, that's great too.
I can do that. The information that I got from our records department was basically beginning with 2019, because I was under the impression that we're looking for roughly a 3 to 4 year period of time. That was what was relayed to me. So we looked at Huntington Drive from Granada to west, and then from Huntington Drive, Bedford to Del Mar, which is the English parking on the south side of Huntington. So with respect to the first portion, the Huntington Drive Granada to west, during that period of time, 2019 to basically the end of November this year, there were a total of 65 collisions. 65. The information I was provided was that 32 of those collisions involved an injury of some sort. And to clarify with regard to injury collisions, however slight the injury might be, a complaint of pain, an actual observed laceration, that type of thing. Regardless, that's how we classify. I'm sure you've probably heard before, but complaint of pain is an injury collision with respect to our stats. We even broke it down further by the type of violation that was noted during those collisions, and at least in those collisions that I just mentioned in that area, looks like roughly 23 of those were for unsafe turning movement of some sort. Typically, you would imagine that it's backing, right, if you're coming out, but it looks like it's probably turning movement into a stall, maybe while someone's coming out. So it's the person turning in that's, hitting them. But
The number was
we have noted 23 that were unsafe turning movement.
might be related to the parking.
Correct.
Thank
So
you.
there's several other sections that were noted as part of the primary collision factor, but that was the most notable one, was the unsafe turning movement. Switching to the next section of the roadway, Bedford to Del Mar, there were 71 collisions in that period of time. And of those 71, 39 were noted as injury collisions. So in each, it's a little more than half, roughly.
I apologize, what was the start date on that?
January 2019 through,
Thank you.
through November of this year.
And the street, the start of that area, you said Del Mar was the end. I missed the start.
So, for the first part, Granada to west, and then
Right.
the second part, Bedford to Del Mar.
Bedford, thank
Yeah.
you. And the number was roughly 71 collisions,
Correct.
39 injuries, and some of them probably had something to do with parking.
Yes, turning movements, backing, that type of thing.
So just doing rough numbers, that's like 34 a year. So approximately 2 to 3 every month. Back napkin.
You're in 7165 and dividing it by 4.
Yeah, correct me here. So 136.
60 months,
Yeah, it's
so about 1 a month.
548.
140 divided by 6. You agree with that? This is the test, by the way.
Oh, you
I'm taking notes. Yeah, I'm talking about
Oh,
combined in terms of paying
Both,
both
there it is.
Yeah.
This is one, two,
to a month. Yeah, to a month.
4.5 years.
But the only issue, that's the average, I guess,
No, just-
the only issue is you could have a month that spiked,
Yes.
and then all of a sudden you have 0 for a week or something like that, but.
One every 2 weeks.
Sorry, Commissioner Pfeffer, do you have a comment?
Oh, no, I mean,
Can I
imagine,
just finish with
Oh, yeah,
one
sorry.
quick question?
We're all doing that.
You were talking about eastbound. Are you going to do a similar review of westbound?
We absolutely can, I was just notified or advised that we wanted the south side.
I think it would
Commissioner Shaw, how
be,
would you like to, this is your project per se, don't let us drive it, we'll give you input, but.
Yeah, we're waiting, well, I guess they've collected some of the information, I hadn't seen the data yet. So I know they were working on collecting more, but of course, yeah, we would look at both sides to evaluate that, and we'll have to go through the primary collision factors to see which ones actually are associated with single parking versus other collisions at intersections or elsewhere that may be unrelated to the issue at hand. So we'll have to complete that analysis once all the data is available, but we would look at both sides.
you want questions about your comments now or later?
No, it's fine.
One of the things we asked about last month was that the traffic commission, the traffic study consider adopting a wider back out area on the north side, similar to what is on the south side. So, excuse me, on the westbound side, provide a wider back out area similar to what is on the eastbound side between San Marino Avenue and Del Mar. At least, is that in your, did that idea get across?
Yeah, I did take note of.
Thank you. So whenever it is that you're able to come back to us, you will address that. Thank you. I apologize for
No,
grabbing the microphone.
this is a good topic, and I think ironically enough, I was dropping off something at UPS store, and there was a car that, I don't know how it happened, a Lexus, but it appeared that it went off because it got T-boned, somehow related to parking, I was like, this is ironic. So maybe one of those stats we heard, Commissioner Pfeffer?
oh, with respect to the police department report, I know extra word asking, but if it would be I would find it helpful, perhaps others, when giving a description of the incidents of the time of day of the incident, might be helpful. Yeah, just kind of as a resident thing on the lookout. So for instance, the ATM, is this one at the Chase? What's the deal there, the 2300?
Correct, I think that's great.
What,
So you would want time of day on.
right, do you know, what approximately what time of day was the ATM?
This one, I'm not sure.
Was it middle of the night or during?
Well, I think that this one actually was later in the day, but I'm not sure.
All right, and then the drunk driver on Monterey later. Was that? It's like later on, it lists kind of time of day. So was that midday, midnight? The sense of when those are.
This one, the Molina one, I don't have the time of day, but we can provide those.
Okay, it said that the drunk driver, it said 3 cars were involved. Did the driver hit 2 other cars and the 3rd car was the suspect's car, or the parked cars that were hit, or were people injured in that incident?
I don't believe they were injured, that's just the information that's provided there as far as there was no injuries involving 3 vehicles. However, I believe that the DUI driver caused the collision to the other 2.
Okay, so it says 3 cars were involved. It was the DUI driver's car and 2 other cars.
That's my understanding.
All right, and I'm just curious that, again, the drug paraphernalia one at the vacant house, more or less the time of day.
I don't have it, but we can get it. We can start putting, like you mentioned, we
yeah,
can start
maybe
putting it.
And then maybe you never don't know, because the call was for a suspicious vehicle parked in the driveway of a vacant property, which again, that was helpful. The residents called in. Just curious if the subject was sitting in his car, or if he was backyard of the house or in there.
No, this one, my understanding is actually seated in the car.
It was.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate your response, yes. Okay, no, I just think time of day would help, you know, also
I
for
agree.
prevention angle as well, but do appreciate it for report.
I appreciate it. I agree.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Shank?
Aaron referred to the Sierra Madre Robles accident. I know Chief Reddick talked about it in his report, but I was reading the description, the car had actually flipped on the side. And I don't think you mentioned that, plus it said it was a single vehicle, but I believe there was two vehicles involved. My daughter took pictures and there was another car, so anyway, my point is that intersection has a history. I brought it up probably 15 years ago before the public safety existed, when we had the Traffic Advisory Commission. And improvements have been made in the 15 years. I mean, the speed's been lowered on Sierra Madre. We put the edge lines, which lowers speed. They modified the intersection, but still have these accidents. I mean, the latest one is only a month ago. Car literally just on the side, parked in front of our driveway. And I don't know what can be done more. Maybe bigger stop signs, bigger cross traffic does not stop, maybe a four-way stop, maybe a signal. That the intersections, of course, it's blind when you continue north. It's kind of blind coming south too. So I'd just like to see what else can be done at that intersection. I don't know if that can be part of the traffic management plan. Can also look at that along with the other task force issues. We can put that on there. And of course, police can always help with the enforcement, the speeding. We still have a lot of speeders, and then cars merging too from the Robles onto Sierra Madre. They cut right in front of cars, they don't realize how fast the cars are going, so they'll cut right in front. And at least a couple accidents happen just unsafe merging. So we can and we'll put that on the plan, the intersections to study. Continue to study. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, I didn't see a headcount update. Where are we nowadays? I know you guys have approved headcount by city council. Has that come into play yet?
Referring to our sworn personnel or
I'm sorry, what personnel?
the sworn personnel?
Yes, sworn personnel. You went to 32, I believe.
Yeah, so we're currently at 31 out of the 32.
Okay, actively recruiting or?
Still actively recruiting. As a matter of fact, we just had interviews for some lateral candidates last week. Unfortunately, they didn't do that great. So we can just keep moving on. The next thing we're gonna do is recruits. However, understanding the process of recruits, unfortunately, it's a lengthy one because they still have to go to the academy, which delays the process. So, but we have recruits that have applied, so we're gonna go with that. We'll probably do a test here in the next couple of weeks on a weekend.
So 31, 32. Next question is, whatever happened to drones?
Oh, they're still in the process. That's another project that Commander Tevis is working on at the same time. And I think while they might have isolated who they like for a vendor, the issue is trying to have that work along with maybe even body worn camera storage. So we have things stored in one place if that works out. So it's kind of all moving forward with that regard, but the at one point council had recommended that we try to keep our storage of information and data like in one place, which I agree with. It's just hard to pull it if you're asking for drones versus body worn versus car camera. If they're all in different places, it's not a smart thing.
I guess to be fair, car and body worn cameras that have a lot more data than drones, because
Likely, very likely, yeah. So technically,
2 or 3 would be a good consolidation.
So technically you could in a different place, but I know that one of the things he was focusing on was, is there a possibility of having that stored in the same area?
Next question is, I know in January of this year, because we kind of, or maybe January, February, I apologize, we kind of had that spike, or what we thought was the spike of crime. We're now almost 2x that here in November. What is the plan for a community outreach event type of, refresher? Is that on the radar, being discussed, not possible?
Oh, anything's possible. Obviously, we're trying to keep things, out on social media as much as possible, putting out things, prior to the holidays. I think the issue is that I think just in general, all of us become a little lax with certain things. I even had to, tell my wife, stop wearing, nice purses out to shop, type of thing. Now is not the time for that. Pick another time type of thing, but
Stop buying those nice purses.
not too, they're old, thankfully. But so yeah, it's getting everybody in the mindset and all of us working together, because regardless of what we try to do or employ, it's not gonna solve by itself is not gonna solve anything. But to your point, we continue with the heat maps, the guided patrol, outside agencies assisting with extra patrol with us and us helping with them, as well as different events, neighborhood watch and things like that, letting people know what's going on and what they should be looking for. So, but any suggestions, we're completely open, but, yeah, I mean, at the tail end of the year here, at least for the month of December, there's, it's just messaging that we can do. If we put events together, I don't think we're getting a lot of participation.
Yeah, I'm not saying do an event now, but I think maybe as a Q1 type of objective, maybe a refresher of security as we go into the new year. Your thoughts about how to be safe. I mean, it was well attended, I think, last time. And that was when we had half as much crime. %.
Sure.
So it's interesting because I don't feel like there's as much talk in the community now that we're up to 11 versus, I don't know what the callus was when we were at 6, but people were talking about it.
It's true. No, we had a good turnout. So, I mean, we can look at something like that again.
I mean, it might be just a good way to kind of refresh what the PD does, neighborhood watch, et cetera, and then kind of get some momentum post holidays for the rest of the year. Other question I had is, I guess along the same lines, I was looking through one of the sections and I recently saw, I don't know if South Pass or maybe La Cañada, there was a program where the city was reimbursing residents if they installed cameras by giving them $100. Did you happen to see that? Or thoughts about an incentive like that? And I always hear cameras and alarms.
I haven't seen it, but we did go down that road with the Ring many years ago. I don't know if you remember that. Actually, that was the biggest turnout that I've actually seen in the city, where their Ring came out and would give, to the residents. You had to establish and prove that you were actually a resident and so on. And we did it at the library, and it was a fabulous turnout. But I don't know if that solved the problem per se, the number of the people there. And we kind of got away from it. I'm not really sure if the vendors are doing it as much. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we haven't looked into it again.
I mean, maybe something for if we do a January, February event, whatever it may be, but I believe it was city council approved that if you could demonstrate that you installed the camera, the city was actually giving you $100. So it wasn't even through a vendor. And it was a local city. I'll look forward an email to you, but I thought it was actually an interesting middle ground.
Yeah, the way I remember it was just from the vendor. They actually gave a discount. They were giving discounts on certain items, some more than others, but there was obviously a floodlight cam,
Yeah. Something better than nothing.
And they actually had the equipment there too, on site that people can buy and get the $100.
They wouldn't let you out the door without getting
I think that's all I had. And Brad, I have a couple questions for you, but I want to get to your section. Commissioners, any follow-up questions? All right. Oh, sorry.
I do have two things that I didn't get to earlier. Number one has to do with the question of these vacancies in the administrative side of your department, missing the dispatcher and the jet unfilled part-time records clerk positions. I guess what I really want to say, is there anything that this commission could do through comments or recommendations to city council, or is there anything that we might do to help you get to the point that you can fill those jobs?
Well, I appreciate that, first of all, because it's hard. Like, if Angie was here, she oversees dispatch, she would tell you, but I think she has the biggest struggle to get people that are interested and people that can then make it through the process of being a dispatcher. Unless they have some level of prior customer service or even dispatch at another agency somewhere, they very much struggle to grasp the fact that they're answering 911, they're dispatching officers, they're answering the front desk from time to time, and they're moving all around. So a lot of it comes down to multitasking. So currently we have one person that's still in training, that's Liana. She just got off duty here a few minutes ago. So she's still on training. The other, yeah, it is good. I mean, that fills that fourth, but we do need the fifth one. And what that does is obviously fills the gaps where there's a dispatcher out, because anytime a dispatcher is out, an officer has to backfill. And if it's not, it's another dispatcher on overtime, so it's filled by someone. Having the fifth dispatcher, they can fill those vacancies, and then they can, on day shift, they can offer support with phone calls and just make things run a little bit smoother, but that's been the challenge, is getting that fifth one filled. I personally would say that, where everything comes from for us is word of mouth. So if anybody knows somebody, as in like that's interested in law enforcement, not necessarily being an officer, but like, you know, working in the field and thinks dispatch would be interesting, then I would encourage them to try it. We do have one person that I might have noted in here, but it's actually interested, and again, it's word of mouth. It's an officer within our department knows somebody from another department, and their significant other is interested in dispatching. And I'm like, well, tell them to get in like right away. So I don't know when, but I've asked to have them come sit along with our dispatch as soon as possible. So what I guess what I'm getting to is that I don't know if there's anything council can do per se. It's more of recruiting and getting people that are able to make it through the process. So that's the unknown, that's the difficulty. I think the records, the part-time records person will be a much, in my opinion, much easier fill than the dispatcher. A lot of times it's getting the dispatchers or potential dispatchers to the testing to even show up. And then once they show up, can they pass the written tests, which is pretty challenging. And once they get all that accomplished, is making it through the training program. And usually they're frazzled by the constant, and our department is obviously not as, you know, fast as another department maybe, but other departments will have multiple people working that position. So if they're not multitaskers, then they won't be able to do it.
You're satisfied that you have the resources to support you though, when in terms of, not in terms of people applying, but in terms of financial resources, so that when you do find somebody, you've got an adequate budget.
Yeah, currently, because we have that fifth position available and then the records person. So I'm personally comfortable, and we can always have more, but that's something Andrew has to reassess once she even is able to get this person off training and the fifth one hired. So, but yeah, I think we're in a good spot for that part.
Thank you. The other thing that I just want to comment on, Commissioner Chang had referred to the issue of the intersection of Sierra Madre Boulevard and Robles. Item number 5 in the recommendations of traffic task force, which we've not had any feedback on yet, had to do exactly with that intersection. And the task force recommended that they strongly consider a traffic light, because the other things had not worked. So I'm hoping that when we get to the public safety or public service or public parks and public works report, that we will find out that this is one of the areas that's currently under serious investigation.
Below the traffic light, you would have a no right turn on red sign, so we don't have people running the red anyway and cutting traffic off.
I'm just right, it's not.
Yeah.
He knows a good construction management company now. Oh,
Motion to receive.
almost, there was one thing I just can't. Kind of one thing that comes to mind is the city manager's newsletter, not as a regular occurrence, but you know, kind of a little section at the bottom, like, hey, want to be a part of the city from a different way? Here's some open roles. Like, I never even think about jobs the city has. Might be a nice way just to kind of, you know, I have a friend in Bridgetto. I just remember there was a list of them on the website, and before that along.
Oh, I agree. Not to talk with the city manager as well as HR and kind of see what their take is on it, but I think that putting all open vacancies right there out on the website would help. I know for us, it's probably pretty easy to navigate and find openings for the PD, but how do you get there to begin with?
Yeah, the website sounds.
So I can bring it up to him, see what his take is on it.
I mean, ideally, it would be a list of all open roles, so every department benefits equally. But to your point, if there's a part-time role, some of the community might be interested in a dispatcher, friends and family network. Sure. Cool. I'd like to open the item for public comments. Does anyone here wish to speak at this time? So please state your name. Rob, is there anyone who wants to speak, and can you remind them of the process?
Yes, if you would like to provide a public comment on this specific item, the police department report, please enter it in the chat and on Zoom. Then will be read to the record.
I see Kevin raised his hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I will, I'll give a moment to be provided.
And I apologize, does Kevin speak or does he type? How does this work?
There's the policies, that anyone interested in public comment on that's joining specifically via Zoom will, it'll be written in the chat.
Oh, they can't speak? Wow. Okay, Kevin, we look forward to reading your comment, hopefully.
How do we have access to the chat? Oh, you, okay. I mean, other than you, too.
We had the login.
I see.
Why don't they get to speak?
This is Brendan.
There was an incident at a recent meeting, when someone was allowed to speak. I don't know all the details, but the policy's been changed.
That's really unfortunate. Oh, that's fast. This is so unique.
Ready, speak to the.
People can always submit written comments in advance of the meeting, right?
Correct. Yes, that's correct. Written comments can be submitted prior to the meeting. Also, with the conclusion of the meeting, when we've gone through all the items, general public comment can be provided. So, obviously, we want to give some time here, but
Maybe I see 6 things in chat. I just don't know if any of those are.
those are all reminders for me to enter.
All right, Kevin, if you can hear us, we see you raise your hand, but I guess per policy, you're not able to speak during the meeting. You'd have to type your question in and then we'll address it if that's possible. We apologize. It's just, we've been told.
Might I just ask, I noticed that in the city council minutes, in the last meeting, they all approved the purchase of a vehicle for the police department. I know that was in the budget. I'm just trying to remember what vehicle was it? It was.
It's vehicle number 1, our watch commander vehicle, that, like you mentioned, was already slated to be replaced. That's
Yeah.
the oldest one in the fleet. So that one was approved. It had already been approved, but we basically got it locked down. The vehicles are super hard to come by. I don't know why that still is the case, but when it comes to GM, some of the vehicles are super hard to get a hold of.
I noticed they said it was gonna be $65,000. I assume that's complete with all the equipment and lights and all that sort of thing, or is that just the vehicle?
Yeah, not entirely, no, especially for that car because of the cage and everything else that goes in there. So essentially, car 1 or the watch commander's vehicle is used as a mobile command post. So just put in perspective, I mean, everything's in there when it comes to any emergency equipment, all the stuff that they would deploy out on an operation or assisting officer in the field. Tools, you know, rams, picks, all that kind of stuff. So everything goes in there, but that's why it's
You just move it from the old car to the new one when you get it?
the equipment, yes, but not the storage, yes. Right, the current one does not have the proper storage. It needs to be isolated into a box or container properly, so.
Thank you.
All right, came back to any luck with Kevin?
No, but like, as I stated earlier, there will be a public comment period at the end of the meeting. So whenever anyone who's interested in submitting a comment, obviously since it's in the chat function, they can enter it whenever, and then I'll get to it at the end of it.
Kevin, so when you have time, if you can, please submit your question and we'll try to address it. We're working with the policies here. Do we have any comments that were submitted electronically on the topic?
None aside from that one.
Okay, and I apologize, when I asked submit electronically, I'm assuming that's sent in like an email per se too, or is it just relayed in a chat too?
It can be that.
Okay, so maybe not asking something that I have already asked, thank you.
We have not received any.
Perfect. At this time, I'll bring the item back for any further discussion with the commission. All right, do I have a motion?
I move to accept and file the police department report.
Do I have a second? Thank you. May we do a roll call?
Commissioner Poe.
Aye.
Commissioner Pfeffer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chang.
Aye.
Chair Martinson.
Aye, thank you. Item 3 is the fire department monthly report. Can we please have a presentation from Chief Rowena?
So you have the report in front of you. I did want to highlight a couple of the fires Commander Blondie pointed out. That's actually not occurring just here. We've responded to fires in several adjacent cities. For different causes. The fire on Palmas Drive, it's a Thanksgiving evening. And was discovered by a group that was exiting the home of a nearby resident. Unfortunately, they contacted the fire department, and there was a large fire and vegetation in front of a house in Palmas Drive. Extended into the attic, like their quick call to us resulted in keeping it not completely destroying the home, with some damage to the attic. It's really been a mystery determining the cause. Nothing in the area, canvassed all the adjacent cameras. It's really good for us to find out how these fires start, because people worry, and we understand that. And this one is still under investigation, still kind of a mystery. Oddly, also the fire on Bedford, as a result of stove heating on the stove, it resulted in contact with combustibles. So as a result of these fires, one of the things we do in the immediate aftermath is the next day we will actually canvass the neighborhoods, offer smoke alarms, install them, an inspection. In this community, there's not a tremendous number of people interested in having firefighters traipse through their home. But we offer that service, and we offer to put up smoke alarms or test them. And we did so on Bedford after the next day. The other thing we did this year, the timing was right, was we sent an article to the Tribune about fire safety and publishing some of that, so residents can see that. Also, social media posts, fire safety. So hopefully that'll be the last one. It's really devastating for residents over Christmas holiday to lose their home and have to move out and enjoy their holidays in some strange place. So the other area I wanted to point out was the paramedic program review. So our paramedic program is under the umbrella of the Los Angeles County Emergency Services Medical Services Agency. They construct all our policies, and this is an annual audit that they undertake of our program. It includes a physical inspection of our ambulances and physical inspection of our drugs, our inventory. And also they pull a segment of our calls and actually review every field. It's really quite an intense audit. Can't believe they do this for every paramedic provider. We under the supervision of our new captain, Jeff Sy, he's our EMS coordinator, really did a great job and received a letter saying we had really zero deficiencies in our audits, which is really good. Lastly, put it in my report that this past month we had a difficulty with Verdugo. Verdugo actually collects our data for us, provides us data mining for our response times this month. Had some problem and we weren't able to publish it. But this data does allow us to look at our system and what's happening not only in our city, but in adjacent cities. And that might be affecting our. Hopefully we'll be back up and running next month. And then lastly, thank you to those that came out for Captain Sy's badge fitting. Good for him. His family got to come out. It's not very often we promote a new captain. Jeff was well deserved. He's been on a path of leadership, and I expect great things from him. And that concludes my report. I'm asking for recommendation to receive the file.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to open for questions. Commissioner Pfeffer?
No question.
Vice Chair Chang?
No, just congratulations again to Jeff.
Oh,
I'm just curious, the report says it's for October. Last month's report also said it was for October. Is it possible that the heading is wrong this month?
That could be, let's see.
The numbers are different. I'm looking at the one, but the chart.
Actually should be for, yeah, that's incorrect.
Okay. And,
We didn't get the data this.
well, but the data down, all of everything else, the other 3 sections seem to be updated from the prior month, so I'm guessing that.
It's probably me putting the incorrect one.
And there's a slight decrease in overtime due to injury and duty, and that's encouraging.
Yes, we still have 2 personnel that are off.
Yeah.
Long term. And we did have one individual that returned after being off from shoulder surgery, so that was a nice return, helps reduce our overtime liability.
Thank you.
Just a simple question or comment, saw the section about the fire department on Christmas Day. My only comment is because last year, my neighbors and neighbors' kids were so upset, the police department and fire department went by so fast, it's like one train. As soon as they heard the fire siren, they ran out the door and they're already gone, so maybe I've seen this in other cities, that's the only reason I recommended. Have the PD go first, 2 to 3 minutes, so they know it's coming, and then by the time they get out, they see the fire truck. Because they now look forward to it, so super exciting day. I would like to, other than the questions? Thank you. I'd like to open the item up for public comment. Robert, does anyone here wish to type at this time their question?
I don't see any indication of. No public comments.
Did we receive anything electronically on this topic?
We did not.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move to receive and file the fire department monthly report with the change to the one schedule, that date change or one schedule.
Second.
Yeah, maybe do a roll call.
Commissioner Poe,
Aye.
Commissioner Pfeffer,
I,
Vice Chair Chang,
Aye.
and Chair Martinson.
Aye. Thank you. All right, our 4th item is Parks and Public Works monthly report. Can we please have a presentation from Director Shaw?
Thank you, Chair Martinson. So for this month's report, I will start with a few items from our follow-up items from prior commission meetings. We already touched briefly earlier on the angled parking. So as a follow-up to that, obviously, once we have all of the data collected and analyzed, we will see a future report at another commission meeting once we've completed that analysis. Moving on to our second bullet item. This also touches on an earlier comment regarding the traffic task force recommendations. Although the ITERS report, circulation study, and the associated recommendations that have not gone to council, there were the separate recommendations that were received from the traffic task force that weren't associated with that report, about 20 different locations. I have given our on-call traffic engineers at TransTech 4 task orders to date to work on. So they're currently working on Duarte between Lorraine and St. Gabriel, Rose from Delmar to St. Gabriel.
Would you want to write these things?
Duarte between Rose and St. Gabriel. Rose between Delmar and St. Gabriel. And then as a follow-up to a previous commission item, I believe there was the concern about at Huntington at West Haven. So they're looking at Huntington between basically San Marino and West Haven, that stretch right there along Huntington. And then the 4th item that they're working on is not directly associated with the traffic task force, although there are recommendations in those areas, which are the areas surrounding the school zones. So they are, as part of the priority citywide traffic priority initiative that we have, they are working on studying all the signing, marking, and such in the areas of the school zones on not only along Huntington Road, but Huntington Drive, but also on the surrounding streets that would be considered part of the school zones. So it's limited, that encompasses the entire area around the schools that would be required in signage for school areas. So those are the 4 items they're working on right now. obviously getting into the holiday time period and now some rain, getting the traffic counts and some of the things is a little lagging, but they are, I do expect that I'll see some of those reports start to come in January, hopefully, if not by February. So those are the 4, and then once they've completed those items, we do plan to have them move on to other locations that were in the traffic task force recommendations, as well as other ones that have come up during this time. Then the last bullet item under follow-up is regarding the Lacey Park Playground. We are still working with a few vendors that have provided some designs and cost proposals. They're refining those. And the intent is still once we've got some final versions of that, to be able to take those to the playground committee to present it to them, and then ultimately for consideration potentially as part of this next upcoming year's fiscal year budget or future budget, depending what council would like to do with those recommendations. Moving on to projects in or near completion. The street rehabilitation program that we recently completed this year, we finally closed out punch list and all of the requirements for that. So the notice of completion for that project was recently at council. The sidewalk was also has already been approved for the notice of completion, and we expect that to begin again. So we're doing a double cycle in the spring this year. And then we've already discussed the bids for the lift station improvement project that we hope to have awards next month at council. Moving into projects that are in design or out to bid, trying to touch on a few things. Really the biggest ones that are in the works right now is I am expecting to have more of an update, hopefully will probably be late January, so maybe our February commission meeting on the Lacey Park culvert replacement project, because we are having the engineers at DUDEC look at some alternative routings to hopefully minimize the impact to the park itself. So they've already did the survey for that, but they are now have to analyze that and model it to see what may be feasible for alternate alignments. So we should have updates on that soon. In terms of our next street rehabilitation project, the 100% plans are currently being finalized. I expect to receive those after the holidays in early January, and that those will be going out to bid. So hopefully we can get construction underway this spring for that project. And we're also going to be putting out the bid package for some of the street light replacements to replace the metal street light standards. That should be going out through this week awards after the new year as well. And then that covers most of the items, just our standard maintenance activities. Obviously, we've had a lot going on with the holidays. We have holiday banners, we have the across these 3, like you said, was a multi-department effort to get that underway. And then along with our typical just winter prep, obviously the rain coming, a lot of prep work to make sure we have sandbag station filled and storm drains are cleared and everything's up to par in that area. And then just regular service maintenance requests that we receive our GOCA back. So with that, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and the recommendation is to receive and file.
Thank you. Commissioner Bogue?
Thank you for the update on the 2 issues in the follow-up. I have no questions.
Commissioner Chang?
Yeah, thank you, Amber. I just have one question on the streetlight replacement. You said you're gonna replace the metal ones with concrete ones. Are you also looking at broken concrete street lamps in the city? And there's a specific example a resident had told me about it's actually leaning. You can see it leaning, and on the bottom, the base is broken.
Is it the one that was recently involved in a traffic collision along Hunting?
No, it's on Palmas Road, 1844 Palmas, and I actually did ride my bike by there, and you can see the base is cracked. It's leaning, and I believe she did call the Public Works, and they said the only thing they can do is remove it, but she does not want it removed. She'd like it repaired.
Okay, I will have to follow up on that.
Okay.
We do have a number of street light poles in our yard that are for replacements. We have equipment down that's included our staff from being able to do some of those replacements themselves, that they typically would have. So as part of that project, we do have a bid item that we're existing for replacing up to like 10 or so
Okay.
with owner provided poles, just because we haven't been able to do them ourselves, but yes, I can look at that specific one and see if
Okay,
it's
yeah, if there are other ones throughout the city that need to be replaced, especially safety related, if it falls over, you know, that's not good.
No, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Pfeffer?
Yeah, no questions, thank you.
All the questions? Um. With the, it's kind of the ongoing theme of the traffic in the city. Is it fair to say the traffic management plan would be a part of kind of how we address what we're doing with the engineers right now? I'm trying to figure out how, like, right now we have engineers working on specific spots. We seem to have a lot of sprinkling of issues. How will the traffic management?
So the traffic management plan will essentially, to make it a more transparent process,
Okay,
provide a framework for how, when we do receive requests, this is the process and procedure for how they'll be evaluated. Obviously, we want to look at each issue from what are the, you know, from an engineering, enforcement, education standpoint. We don't necessarily want to throw the most expensive treatment at something without understanding, you know, what is really required to address an issue. So it's kind of a staggered approach of building up to what the final outcome might be for an item. So it'll definitely lay out, this is, you know, what the issue is, how we would evaluate it, what are the steps, what are the possible treatments, what would be required for different treatments depending on what's recommended or requested in those locations. It'll also be an educational tool because it'll help talk about some of the things that are frequently asked for. Typically, a lot of times you'll get a request for stop signs and then we have to say, well, stop signs aren't for speed control. They're a right of way device for signing right of way, not for controlling traffic. There's requests for speed humps, you know, and different things like that. And so it'll kind of go through what are the different tools in our toolbox for how to address different issues. Some of the pros, cons of those items and how procedurally handled when we do have requests for evaluations. So it'll kind of go hand in hand and we are expecting that'll be ready to come to at least the first draft of it, come to the commission in hopefully January. We're getting the holidays, so it's a little tough, but if not, definitely by February, but the goal is January. We'll at least have a first draft.
okay, and when we have that, I'm just trying to put this out literally in my head. We'll have that document, then if a intersection meets those requirements, then it would go out to the traffic engineer and start doing the research, or is it kind of a parallel track? I'm just trying to understand, how is it different than the process we're doing today? Because we don't have a process, but we're moving forward on a couple of streets.
So it will essentially go through, it'll lay out the process.
Okay,
So anytime we get a request, it's gonna say, you know, thank you for your request, for your reference, this is our residential streets traffic management policy. Will help you understand what the process about evaluating this location is. In my general experience, it really only takes one request to initiate. Obviously, we have a number of requests, so we have to prioritize, and I can't really give the traffic engineers 20 different locations for especially depending on what the outcomes are and budgeting and how those different issues will need to be addressed depending on the complexity of it. So it'll lay that out for them. So it's more transparent, so they understand what the process is, and it'll also, like I said, be an educational tool. So when they're asking for a certain thing, they understand what the right time is to use it or not, or provide more information like that.
so it's even kind of a guide for the traffic engineer to like understand our way to our preferences per se, maybe, is that what I'm hearing, or?
They won't so much rely on it. It's really more for the resident.
Okay,
And then when we have that request, it would be given to the traffic engineer to do their typical analysis, obviously working with myself, with our department to help guide. If they're recommending something that maybe wouldn't be a good fit for the city, like understanding what the alternatives are or not. But so that would be separate in terms of what their analysis is. They're not really gonna be looking at the residential street management plan. It's really for a tool for the residents to understand the process and what resources and different traffic calming devices are and when the appropriate times to use them may or may not be.
So then what is this, so what the engineers come with back after they've done their assessment on intersection, like this is on a scale of 1 to 10, a hot item? And I know last time when we did that terrace report, there were 3 categories, is it like that, they'll do a ranking or a rating of that
No,
intersection?
because they're looking at it as a single item.
Yeah, so
outside
that's
of
what I understand,
everything else. So they will do, so depending on the issue, they may be doing a speed survey to get what the 85th percentile to understand what is a really pervasive speeding problem there, or is it more of a perception, or what is the issue there or not? They may be getting traffic counts. It really depends on the request. If there's a request for maybe stop signs, they would be looking at not only the traffic counts, but obviously collision history, which would also be involved in speeding. So they kind of do a holistic approach, but they're literally just looking at that one item. They're not providing a ranking. They're saying this is an issue or it isn't an issue based on data study of the area that you're seeing for. And these are recommendations relative to this location.
okay. I guess I look forward to the first report kind of outside of iTerrace, 'cause I think that's the only thing I'm framing off of, and that had a whole rank and file and recommendation for top 3, so this seems like a much different process, which is.
Yeah, it's a much shorter letter, basically report that says these are the existing conditions, this is what we found in the field, this is the data we collected. Based on what we found, either it may be there's nothing really to do here, it's within what's expected. And potentially more enforcement or and education is the right thing, or it may be, well, you need to implement additional signage or whatever the case may be. So
Okay.
let's have that.
I'm looking forward to it. Second question is regarding the radar trailer. I know that keeps track of speed and time of day. Is that any of that information something that could supplement what the engineers are gathering with humans?
The radar trailers are typically more of an educational device, because they can alter the driver's behavior. So usually when they're out there, if somebody's not paying attention and all of a sudden they see the radar trailer, either they're slowing down because they're worried because they see the radar trailer, or it just reminds them, they're like, oh, I'm going faster than I realized. And so it's really more of an educational tool, and because it does alter or can alter driver behavior, we don't rely on it in terms of our analysis. So when a speed survey is done, it's usually done in an unmarked car with a radar gun. So that way they're capturing what a driver, unaware of any, being recorded of what their speeds are, what their standard behavior is, how do they normally drive on this road.
Oh.
So we really don't rely on it in the analysis for a survey of whether we want anything, but we do rely on it in terms of understanding, because some people will still be driving fast and it'll capture that, and so it'll help. I would say not different the police department, but it helps them see when there's times of more frequent high speeds, or when they need to focus. It helps them narrow down to focus their enforcement time.
Yeah.
If they can see a pattern, well, between these hours, there's usually a lot of speeding or not, but it's really more of an educational tool.
Okay, and then final question, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to double check. In terms of the school zone review that they're currently doing for Carver, for instance, that would only be on the San Marino areas of the school zone, is that fair?
Yeah, we did limit it to within the city's boundaries.
Okay, so for Carver, it's really just a little bit of Huntington right before Carver, because San Gabriel will be out of scope, and so with Huntington in front of Carver, is that fair?
Yeah, there's a small, I think, section of San Gabriel that is sort of our jurisdiction, and it kind of falls within the county, but then there are some crossings further down.
It's okay, so there'll be some input, a little bit more, okay, that's really great. That's my question, okay.
Yeah.
Any follow-up questions for the commissioners? No. Do we have anyone online that would like to type their question?
Yes, so Kevin was able to submit his public comment, so this one will be listed in the record as
Thank you, Kevin.
under the police. The first one, he submitted 2 comments. First one will be listed under the police department's report, because that's what it was intended to be submitted for. So I'll just go ahead and read what he submitted.
And I'm sorry, for the record, Kevin who?
Okay. So he says, my name is Kevin Bejar. Okay, apologies for pronunciation. Sussex Road, I was intending to follow up on Chelsea Road looking north to Huntington Drive East intersection, when the Granada eastbound light is green and traffic is zooming by, it requires Chelsea North turning right onto Huntington to extend out into the intersection before one can see available access to complete the turn, requiring the automobile to completely block the pedestrian area. This occurs when the vertical parting on the southern part of Huntington Drive is fairly full. So that's the conclusion of that comment. And then a second comment, I'll list this under Public Works in the minutes. It says for Parks and Public Works, there is a 300-foot pine tree on South Sussex that extends severely over Sussex to the point that if and when it falls, it will hit the house across the street. I have brought this up prior and have been told that the city and the county cannot agree on who is responsible. New neighbors have moved into the threatened home who are not necessarily aware of the potential danger. The tree's root system is shallow as it sits directly over the open drainage creek, meaning that it is not deeply rooted. It is a huge tree. That's the conclusion of the second comment.
And remind me again, Robert, we cannot talk about these because there's not an agendized item, is that correct?
Yes.
I'll defer to the former city. All right. So then we'll add it to the record and then next time we can follow with questions.
Sure, and staff can look into these as well, obviously.
Okay, and do you have any clarifying questions or those intersections make more sense? I'm not exactly sure, but that is fine.
I know exactly where this.
Okay, and Amber, you okay with the tree?
Yeah, we'll limit.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, thank you. Hopefully next month, if the questions are still there, we can talk about during the respective. Any other one? Did anyone else type their questions?
No other public comments or requests.
And do we get anything submitted?
Not.
Cool. Commission, any follow-up questions?
No.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Move to receive and file the December 2023 Parks Public Works Department report.
Second.
Can we do a roll call?
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Commissioner Pfeffer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chang.
Aye.
And Chair Martinson.
Aye. Moving along on the agenda, do we have any written communication of public rights for distribution?
We do not.
Do we have any items that we would like to have added to the future agenda?
Agenda, but for discussion, we've been referring to the next two meetings. So the third Monday of both January and February is a federal holiday. Of course, we have MLK Day. President Martin Luther King's birthday, January, and Washington/President's birthday is a February meeting. Presume City Hall is closed on both days.
No,
No, not.
They would know.
it's not closed on King. I'm not sure about the other day.
It's
President's.
it's close on President's Day.
Yeah.
I think last year, did we cancel the January meeting?
I do not recall it on this. No one else
We
recalls.
just have the City Hall. We get a notice.
We held it.
We can always reschedule like for a different date, not necessarily the third Monday would just be considered a special meeting.
Thank you. Any other items?
I have a question before we adjourn.
Let's discuss it right now, please.
Where are the minutes of the last meeting? They weren't included in the.
Yeah, we
Not even listed on the agenda.
correct, yeah, those were not completed yet, but we'll have two sets of minutes for yes, the November and December will be included on the January agenda.
Thank you.
In terms of future topics for next month, Amber, would it be possible, just because I think there is so much attention to the engineering aspect, kind of a quick list of the tier 1 intersections that are under review right now, kind of what's under tier 2 and 3? And just to, my tier 1 I wrote Dwardy, Roses, Huntington, the school area, and then whatever tier 2 is, I think that might be helpful to do. Because I get that question all the time, even people have come here before, like, whatever happened, I'm like, I think that would be a nice thing I could. Any other comments or questions? I move forward with, the meeting's adjourned at 7:30 PM. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.